In this video, we are going to walk through the steps for software setup and configuration of the ISOBUS sprayer control system. It's important to understand the terms profile and configuration. A profile is a pre-built file that can be loaded onto the ECU and serves as a starting point for your machine. A configuration is a profile that has been customized with settings and has been saved and stored on the ECU. Configurations are machine specific and should not be used on a different piece of equipment. The default profile for your ECU is liquid fertilizer/sprayer with a standard servo setup. If this is the setup for your bar, your profile is already loaded and you can proceed to the configuration section of this video. If the liquid fertilizer/sprayer with the standard servo is not applicable for your use, you have two options. Option 1, download a pre-built profile from the USB drive using the download box. Or option 2, go through the manual configuration steps. This system is set up by default for an inline sprayer system. If you are using a bypass sprayer system, you will need to perform the manual configuration. Please refer to Section 6 in the Liquid ECU Installation Manual for the steps to set up a bypass sprayer. Option 1 requires use of the download box. Please refer to the download box operating instruction manual or watch the download box operating video. Both of these resources will provide you with step-by-step instructions to upload the proper ECU profile. You can choose between the following profiles. Choosing one of these pre-built profiles will get your settings close, but you will still need to make adjustments during the calibration steps, which will be covered later in this video. If none of the pre-built profiles work for your setup, you need to choose option 2 and go perform a manual configuration. Please refer to Section 6 of the Sprayer Installation Manual. This resource will provide you with step-by-step instructions for manual configuration. Once you have the correct profile chosen, you are ready to begin the configuration process to set up your sprayer. Power up your system. This can be done in one of two ways. For ISOBUS tractors, simply switch the tractor on using the ignition key. For non-ISOBUS tractors, power up the display. Before using the implement for the first time, you must configure the following settings: implement parameters, speed source, sections, flow meter, and implement dimensions. Let's begin inputting your settings into the setup and configuration process. Enter the sprayer ECU universal terminal. On some displays, you may have to wait several minutes for the first time the ECU is connected. Press the system configuration to enter the configuration window. It's the icon that looks like a gear. This will take you to the Configuration 1 screen. The first step is to enter your application type into the display. The system will use this choice for calculating the application amount. Select liquid sprayer in gallons as your application type. Next, enter your target rate in gallons per acre. You use this parameter to set how much product you want to apply. The delta target rate is the amount of change the system makes to the target rate when you press the rate increase or rate decrease icons on the display. Enter the amount of change you want to occur. Here's a look at the home screen with the rate increase and rate decrease icons highlighted. Pressing the automatic rate icon clears the manual rate changes and returns the system to the set target rate. Press the icon with the three dots to proceed with the configuration process. On the Configuration 2 screen, enter the working width of the implement in feet. The default regulation factor is 5. This value will adjust the rate for how the control valve reacts to changes. If the valve is too slow to react, you will need to increase the regulation factor. If the valve is too fast to react, you will need to decrease the regulation factor. Enter a minimum speed. This value represents the slowest speed the control of the application can occur. Speed below the set value will cause the system to stop applying and close all the valves. Press the icon with three dots to proceed with configuration. On the Configuration 3 screen, enter the tank size in gallons. This value is the total volume of the tank in gallons for product indicated in the screen title area. Enter a tank level alarm. If the amount of the product in the tank is below this value, a message appears on the screen, "Low tank content." This alarm requires that alarms be enabled for the system. Enter a meter calibration amount from the tag on the flow meter. The tag value measures the number of pulses the flow meter sends to the ECU per 1 gallon of liquid. Enter this number into the display. If you are using a Raven flow meter, the number on the tag is measuring pulses per 10 gallons. You must take the number on the tag and divide it by 10. For example, the flow meter tag says 720. 720 divided by 10 equals 72. Enter 72 for the meter cal on the configuration screen for a Raven flow meter. This number will be finely tuned during the calibration process of the flow meter later in this video. Select if a pressure sensor is installed. This will enable the system pressure to be displayed on the home screen. Press the icon with 3 dots to proceed with configuration. On the Configuration 4 screen, the Lock at Last setting should be checked if you want to keep the valve open for servos or keep the pump running for a PWM setup. This allows for a quicker return to the target rate when you start applying again. Lock at Last should only be used when there is a master valve in the system or with spraying systems that have section valves. Check the Jump Start feature if you want to start applying before the implement is up to speed. Restart the system for this change to take effect, or wait to restart at the conclusion of the setup and configuration process. Enter the speed that corresponds to the rate you want applied when pressing the Jump Start button. Enter the amount of time in seconds that you want the Jump Start to apply before the tractor achieves the desired speed. Press the icon with 3 dots to proceed to set up the alarms. If you want to activate the product rate alarm, put a check in this area. Enter the allowable error percentage that you want. If you want a tank level alarm, make sure this box is checked. Press the back arrow to return to the home screen and continue the setup process. You must input the amount of product in the tank prior to starting to operate in order for the system to correctly display the tank content. The tank filling feature is optional. Rate control will still function without using this feature. Press the tank settings icon. If the tank is full, press the max tank icon. If the tank is not full, press the reset tank icon. Enter the fill amount to add the current volume of the tank. If the current volume is at 0 and you have an 800 gallon tank, enter 800 in the fill amount. If the current volume of an 800 gallon tank is 250 gallons, enter 550 gallons in the fill amount. Press the back arrow to return to the home screen and continue the setup process. Next, let's set up the speed signal. The speed of the vehicle must be known so that the ECU can calculate the application amount. There are 3 possible speed signal sources: from the tractor, from radar, and simulated speed. Let's first look at setting the speed signal with the source coming from the tractor. Select the settings icon. Open the speed configuration window by selecting the icon with the speedometer and gear. Select the tractor icon as the speed source. Now press the check mark to confirm that you want to use the tractor wheel speed as your speed source. To use radar for the speed signal source, press the radar icon to open up the radar calibration screen. Press the check mark to confirm that you want to use radar as your speed source. Select the radar calibration icon. Now press the arrow to start the calibration. Once you have driven the vehicle 300 feet, press the check mark to stop the calibration. Now enter your calibration factor into the display. Simulated speed is used for testing, diagnostics, or limited operation after a speed source failure. To use the simulated speed source, select the speedometer icon and enter your desired speed. Select the check mark to confirm. Press the back arrow to return to the home screen. Let's now configure sections. A section refers to a part of the implement in which all of the nozzles are supplied with product from a section valve. Closing the section valve switches off the section. The implement has as many sections as it has section valves which can be switched off. The first section is always on the left in the direction of travel, the second on its right. To set up your sections, Select the Section Settings icon. Enter the total number of sections for your sprayer. The system must be restarted for these changes to take effect. You can perform this function now or at the completion of the setup and configuration process. Press the check mark to continue. Now you must tell the system how many nozzles you have in each section. Enter the number of nozzles for section 1. Repeat this process for all sections. If you are using fence row nozzles on your sprayer, make sure that this box is checked. Refer to the Liquid ECU installation manual for the correct cabling instructions for using fence row nozzles. Restart the system for this change to take effect, or wait to restart at the conclusion of the setup and configuration process. Let's now tell the system about your implement geometry. The geometry is the number of parameters which describe the dimensions of your implement. Inputting the geometry enables the system to know the exact length and width of the machine and the position of the individual sections. Press the back arrow, select the geometry settings icon. Measure the following distances on the implement and enter them into the geometry implement screen. The distance in inches of the hitch offset to the left or right, the distance in inches of the nozzle offset, the distance in inches from the hitch to the implement axle. Press the arrow icon to cycle through your sections. The nozzle offset can be set individually for each section if the distances are different. If they are the same measurement, you still have to cycle through all the sections and set them accordingly. The last step in the configuration process is to calibrate the flow meter. The flow meter is used to measure the amount of product applied. Because the number of pulses per gallon can change during the lifespan of a flow meter, calibration must be carried out in the following cases: prior to initial setup, at the start of each season, if you notice that there are deviations between the actual amount applied and the displayed amount, when you have exchanged or repaired the flow meter. Calibration must be performed during normal field work. This means that you can only calibrate the flow meter once the other system parameters have been configured. Follow these steps for flow meter calibration. Note the gallons of liquid in your tank. Drive to a field which is at least 10 acres in size. Prepare the implement for work. Now select the flow calibration icon. Press the play icon to begin calibration. During application, the number of gallons will be counted on the flow calibration screen. Work a test route on the field until you have applied a few hundred gallons. Stop application. The application will be stopped. No pulses are counted on the display. Stop the calibration. You will now see the actual amount of gallons applied. Now check the gallon content of the tank once again. Subtract this current number of gallons from the number of gallons prior to application. Enter the amount applied in gallons in the actual amount field. Press the check mark to confirm. You have now calibrated the flow meter and completed the software setup and configuration of the ISOBUS sprayer control system. The final step of the setup and configuration process is to go through a checklist of 6 steps to confirm and double check that your system is ready for operation. The first step is to test drive the tractor and verify that the ground speed is functioning and accurate. While traveling at a consistent speed, confirm that the tractor display or the tractor A-post speed matches the speed displayed in the universal terminal. There are 2 common sources for speed discrepancy. If the firmware on the tractor ECU and the firmware on the display is not up to date, you may be getting an inaccurate speed reading. Once the ISOBUS system is installed, the tractor is now receiving speed from this source. Update the tractor ECU and the display firmware to the latest release to guarantee that your ISOBUS system is correctly communicating the tractor speed. If the tractor speed is not correctly calibrated, you may see a discrepancy between the A-post speedometer speed and the ISOBUS display speed. Because the ISOBUS is getting its speed from a GPS source, it's most often accurate. The solution is to use the manufacturer's method to calibrate your vehicle's speed. Secondly, verify that you have the correct number of sections by counting the blue bars on the universal terminal. If you are running 5 sections, you should see 5 blue sections on the display. Thirdly, double check that your valves are in the correct order and are functioning correctly. Use the soft key buttons on the universal terminal to verify this. Visually and/or audibly confirm that the valves open and close with the use of the display. Next, make sure you have the correct flow calibration number entered into the display. Double check your math from earlier in the setup process and confirm the correct number has been entered into the display. Next, if a pressure sensor is installed, run a pressure sensor check in Diagnostics. Click on the Diagnostics icon. Press the three dots icon until you see the Pressure Sensor 1 screen. Confirm that you are getting voltage from the pressure sensor. Finally, if a foot switch or external work switch is installed, verify that the switch is calibrating correctly in the universal terminal. Sections should be turned on and off with the engagement of this switch. This completes the software setup and configuration of the ISOBUS sprayer control system. You need to restart the system for the setup and configuration settings to now take effect. Refer to the operation manual or contact your dealer if you need further assistance.